Welcome back to First Principles Daily, episode 15. Today's question, what would this cost if you only paid for the atoms? Prescription glasses that sell for hundreds of dollars start from only a few dollars of polycarbonate, acetate, and metal hardware. A finished pair of prescription glasses routinely leaves a store for $300 or more. Yet the raw materials inside amount to roughly $5 at commodity prices. The lenses begin as molded polycarbonate blanks, the frames as sheets of acetate or lengths of wire, and the hinges as small stamped or cast pieces of metal. That gap between the physical floor and the retail price is not an accident of scarce resources. It is the accumulated result of how the industry has been organized for decades. To see why the numbers sit where they do, consider what actually happens once the material leaves the chemical plant and enters the sequence of shaping, coating, fitting, and distribution steps that follow. Most glasses reach a customer through a sequence that begins with a licensed optometrist writing a prescription, moves through a small number of large frame and lens manufacturers, and ends at a retail location that performs edging and fitting. The same handful of companies control the majority of frame brands and lens production capacity, which concentrates pricing power at every stage after the raw materials leave the chemical plant. Retail locations carry high fixed costs for prime real estate, trained opticians, and inventory that must sit on display until a customer selects a style. Vision insurance plans add another layer of administrative overhead and negotiated reimbursement rates that often keep posted prices elevated so that discounts can be offered inside the plan network. Because prescriptions must be renewed periodically, and because many jurisdictions require an in-person refraction before a new pair can be ordered, each purchase carries the cost of a professional visit even when the patient's refractive error has not changed. Custom edging of lenses to match a chosen frame is still performed one pair at a time in most shops, using equipment whose throughput has improved only modestly over the last 20 years. One might ask whether these costs are simply unavoidable overhead required for safety and accuracy, but the sequence shows that each stage is optimized inside an existing division of labor rather than re-examined from the standpoint of what the atoms themselves require. The combination of these steps produces a finished price that feels normal inside the industry because each participant is optimizing within the existing constraints rather than questioning the constraints themselves. A rough magic wand estimate begins with the lens material. Polycarbonate suitable for ophthalmic use trades at commodity prices on the order of a few dollars per kilogram. A pair of finished lenses might contain 200 grams once edging scrap is considered, placing the material cost in the low single-digit dollar range before any optical coating. If the price per kilogram sits near $4, then 200 grams is 1/5 of a kilogram, and therefore contributes less than $1 before coatings or grinding enter the picture. Frame material follows a similar path. Cellulose acetate sheets used for injection molded or machined frames sell for a few dollars per kilogram as well, and a complete front and pair of temples contain perhaps 300 grams, again yielding a material cost of a couple of dollars. Hinge hardware, nose pads, and screws add another dollar or two at most when purchased in volume as generic stamped or cast components. Adding those three categories together produces a magic wand floor somewhere between $4 and $8 for the physical object itself, before any energy for melting, molding, or polishing is counted. Dividing a typical $300 retail price by that floor gives an idiot index between roughly 40 and 75. The index does not imply that anyone is overcharging for plastic. It shows that the cost is carried almost entirely by the sequence of steps that sit between the pellet or sheet and the customer's face. Those steps include precision grinding and polishing of the optical surfaces, application of anti-reflective and scratch-resistant coatings in vacuum chambers, custom edging on computer numerical control equipment that still requires skilled setup, shipping of semi-finished blanks to regional laboratories, retail markups that cover floor space and trained staff, and the administrative cost of moving claims through vision insurance systems. Each of those stages adds value that is real to the participants Yet each also adds cost that compounds because the stages remain only loosely coordinated. A listener might wonder whether the coatings or the grinding themselves dominate the material floor, but the arithmetic still places the uncoated polymer at a few dollars, leaving the subsequent operations as the larger share of the observed retail number. A redesign effort would first target the edging and fitting step because that is where the largest single labor and equipment cost still occurs after the lenses leave the factory. If lens blanks could be edged at the point of sale using compact automated equipment that reads frame dimensions from a standardized digital file rather than from a physical tracer, the need for regional laboratories would shrink and turnaround time would drop from days to minutes. The next move would be to capture and standardize fit data, pupillary distance, vertex distance, pantoscopic tilt, so that a larger fraction of orders could be completed without an in-person adjustment visit. Remote refraction technologies that have already demonstrated clinical equivalence for many refractive errors could further reduce the requirement for a full office encounter when the patient's history is stable. None of these changes removes the need for periodic professional oversight of eye health. They simply separate the medical examination from the mechanical fabrication of the corrective device. One might object that every prescription still needs a trained eye to verify prism or high astigmatism, yet the workflow already treats the majority of routine cases as if they all require the same on-site sequence. The hard constraints remain real. Some prescriptions involve prism or high astigmatism that still benefit from direct measurement, and proper frame fit affects both comfort and optical performance. Yet the fraction of cases that truly require custom on-site intervention is smaller than the current workflow assumes, which is why the idiot index stays high. By stating the medical requirement as a need for accurate refractive correction and the mechanical requirement as repeatable shaping of known materials, the opportunity appears in the coordination layer rather than in any shortage of the underlying polycarbonate or acetate. A finished product whose price greatly exceeds its raw material value is announcing that the design of the process, not the scarcity of atoms, is the dominant constraint. Questioning the requirement before optimizing the part that satisfies it often reveals that several steps can be collapsed or automated once the original medical and mechanical needs are stated in physical rather than historical terms. Tomorrow, the show will examine another concrete case or another domain where the same gap between floor and price still exists. The first visible signal that someone is attempting this with glasses would be a working prototype that produces edged, coated lenses from digital frame data in under 10 minutes at a verified material cost below $10. That's First Principles Daily for today. If this changed how you see what things cost, share it with someone who'd appreciate it, and subscribe wherever you listen. I'm Patrick in Vancouver, one example or one opportunity every day. See you tomorrow. And if you'd rather watch than listen, find us on YouTube at Nerra Network. Links in the show notes. This episode used AI voice synthesis of my voice. Editorial selection and analysis are my own.